Today, Diablo 4's official quarterly update dropped, peppered with new information covering the game's release, the world, its story, multiplayer, item progression, and more. So here's a breakdown of what to expect as we go over each individual facet which is discussed and adding insights as we go along. Just as a quick aside before the video starts, this video is almost solely going to be using the few official screen grabs and shots that were accompanying the article, as I believe that they are more powerful than any cinematic or generic footage that I could add to this, and I think you'll know what I mean when you watch the video. With that being said, let's jump into it.
Hell is coming.
First up, unsurprisingly, I wanted to touch on storytelling. Now, they said a couple of things have evolved with how we deliver story in Diablo 4. First, we have conversations. In D3, we relied on UI panes with a character's name and portrait. We're experimenting with a mix of tool-generated and manually choreographed cameras to tackle conversations. For simple interactions with NPCs, we bring the camera in closer to the characters, while still maintaining an overall isometric feel, and use a library of animations to deliver the general gist of the conversations. For more complex conversations, we take a similar camera approach, but here the characters' movements and animations are more deliberately handcrafted. This lets us deliver story moments that are complex while keeping you in the world as much as possible. And on screen you can see a shot from one such interaction. Now there's a lot to unpack in this alone, because Diablo 3 was woefully behind the times in my opinion when it came to the isometric view when characters spoke and relying on the character panes. The problems were actually twofold. The first was if you tried to zoom in to get a better view of the conversation, if the characters were obstructed at all, then you just didn't see them actually acting. And the second part is they would do a set of emotes. It looked like WoW emotes on loop, and it really didn't fit the situation. So I think what Blizzard is saying here is that they're looking to update this, so more generic conversations. Presumably, there may be hundreds or thousands of NPCs to interact with, so the more generic, quick conversations will actually just have some standard animation, but probably better than D3. But also they've said they will go above and beyond for those more important interactions, and hopefully that isometric view, as we see on screen, actually holds well. Now, the second part is that the character Blizzard chose to showcase in their overhead view actually gives us some potential lore points. And the first is he is doing an autopsy on a demon. Now, if we zoom in closer, we see this demon has some red protruding shards, or it looks like there are stones in him. Now, if you've watched the World Stone and Why It's the Key to Everything video, you would know that I believe that shards of the World Stone may be used to help power up Lilith and her army, and they may be embedded directly in demons, and this seems to support that. So that's just another side note. Moving on to Blizzard's update on cinematics, they said the second storytelling method we're developing is real-time cutscenes. Here we grab your camera and treat the storytelling more like a movie. So we're reserving this technique for the most important story moments. Now remember, say Diablo 2 or 3 or even 1 had FMV sequences that took you out of the game. Instead, they're saying that they're going to be using an in-game engine. Having these be real-time has great advantages, they went on to say. We can show your character with their currently equipped armor as part of the cutscene, for example, but we can also display them at your current resolution and with your currently enabled graphics settings, so they end up feeling more seamless and like a part of the game. And what you're seeing on screen are the couple of screen grabs that the story and cinematics folks have greenlit to share. And they also said, we showed you some early work on real-time in-game cinematics during the BlizzCon demo. Our cinematics and engine teams have made a lot of improvements since then. So we decided to see a fully produced cinematic serve as the climax to the Dry Steppes experience, and the team was not disappointed. The second feature I want to discuss is the open world, which pretty much blew my mind with a couple of the beats that they discussed. They said one of the main new features we're bringing to the Diablo series is the open world of Sanctuary. So while you can concentrate on the story campaign and work through that, we have a variety of open world systems and pieces of content that you're also discovering along the way. If you want to take a break from the main campaign and go exploring, crafting, or PvPing, you're free to do so. During the playtest, we saw this variability in action quite a bit. On average playthrough, team members took several hours to complete the campaign content for the region, but those who focused only on the story finished the arc in less than half the average time, and were of course able to do side content after that. We think the ability to approach the game with a different mix of story and side content tailored to your own appetite will make playing and replaying the campaign more enjoyable than it has been in previous ARPGs. Personally, the reason why I'm excited for this is I believe that Diablo is really good as a grind and loot-based game. However, if you want to take a break from that, then you take a break from the game. This really gives the ability to go and explore and treat it like an RPG, where my favorite facet outside of the story is exploration. So hopefully the crafting and the PvP is obviously up to snuff, but it will give you a breather and I think more time to really enjoy the world of Sanctuary and kind of pick a spot on the map, throw a dart, and then go head in that direction. They went on to say, while we have many open world activities such as crafting, events, world PvP, and side quests, perhaps the most popular open world feature was camps. These locations of importance that have been overrun by enemies which once cleansed turn into friendly outposts with NPCs and a waypoint location. While there is a backstory to each camp, most of the storytelling is visual and quests don't directly send you to them. For example, one of the camps in the zone was a town afflicted by a curse that turned villagers into piles of salt. Another was a crypt haunted by a spirit that possesses the bodies of various undead, jumping from skeleton to skeleton until you defeat him. We really dug the impact of seeing the world change as you reclaim a small piece of Sanctuary and bring hope back to its common folk. We look forward to the open world designers showing you more about this feature in the future. A few things really stand out to me. Obviously, fans of the Fallout series may have pangs of nostalgia when it comes to the settlements in Fallout 4. Love them or hate them, I'm surprised that this is a fan favorite, which means they probably got it right. The second facet, which is interesting in the statement, is that they reported the storytelling is visual and quests don't directly send you to them. Now, I am torn on this. I love to hear a story of what is happening, to see the horror in a townsfolk face, and then go out, explore, kill the NPC, or face the evil and head back to town to tell them that all's well. Instead, it seems for some of these camps we may have a visual cue. If you stumble onto a camp where all of the townspeople are turned into piles of salt, you're probably going to say, what's happened here? And then see a clear visual indicator of a quest. Maybe there's a scroll on the ground, maybe it's defeat enemies, but you can see how it wouldn't always make sense to have a random mercenary or NPC or townsman to be wandering about saying, there's a town down yonder where the villagers have been turned to salt. Instead, they're using the environment to do some of the storytelling. I hope not too much because it is an RPG, but it does seem like a welcome relief, and hopefully settlements are as much of a hit with the fans as they are reporting. Finally, they said mounts were another thing you could obtain during the playthrough. We really liked how the open world interacts with your mounts. You could get to your objectives more quickly without trivializing travel or combat. Itemization for mounts also opened up a new axis of progression. Lead designer Luis Barriga went on to say his favorite thing about mounts was customizing it by attaching a trophy to the saddle to signal to the other players that they had completed an obscure challenge in the zone. Something that we'd seen in the trailers and gameplay is basically if you can ride a horse, you can have a head of a fallen foe in it and be like, guess what I just killed. Of course, there is more work to be done on mounts, for example, on navigation and tuning, and it is currently too easy to get stuck on stray pieces of collision or to get dismounted by a random enemy projectile. These are all things that are just going to get better the more we play and tune the feature. Again, mounts have been somewhat polarizing for players. I believe that, it would be better than running around Sanctuary on foot. I'm looking forward to mounts, but it is one of those things that you have to hit on the head, and this is the first time we've experienced them in Diablo, so fingers crossed that the implementation is going to be functional, but I dare say with microtransactions and mounts in other Blizzard games, tasteful. Moving on to multiplayer. They said fine-tuning the right approach to multiplayer in Diablo 4 has been challenging. Our goal has always been to incorporate elements from shared world games without the game ever feeling like it's veering into massively multiplayer territory. For example, to be clear, this is a philosophy rather than a tech limitation. We find that the game stops feeling like Diablo and the world feels less dangerous when you see other players too often or in too high numbers. I know that this is a controversial topic, as Diablo 3 by Blizzard North originally was going to be an MMO, however was nixed as it was going to compete directly with World of Warcraft, and I'm not trying to bang that drum. However, I think it's important to think upon what Diablo 4 is trying to achieve. I'm going to assume that they tried to make it a full-blown MMO and it just wasn't working for them. I personally can see it from both points. I wouldn't want to be swarmed by a lot of players. I don't think that it fits the aesthetic or the gameplay. However, done right, I think anything is possible. They went on to say, I'll break down our experiences during the playtest with some examples. Dungeons and key story moments are always private, just the player and their party. Once story moments are complete and towns turn into social hubs, you'd run into a few people in town. While on the road, you'd sometimes run into a player here and there, and then finally, if you went to a location where a world event was happening, you would see a large congregation of players trying to defend against an attack by cannibal hordes or trying to take down Ashava, the demonic world boss we showed at BlizzCon, also seen on screen. Personally, I'm not against zoning or phasing into different instances. There are definitely places that I want to be private. I don't want a RuneScape level of PvP where you can step outside of a town or safety and get ganked. Maybe some people do, and I'm sure that there will probably be some areas that are designated to be just that. But it seems the game design philosophy is revolving around there's a time and a place for everything. Now, they also said it's worth calling out that while some coordination is helpful during these events, you are never forced to join a party. Just stay online. I'm sorry, I had to add that. Solo players can walk in, help complete the event, and claim a reward. We think this seamless approach to multiplayer is working well, and looking forward to sharing more about this approach with you. In our tests so far, the world feels alive and dynamic without compromising the feel of Diablo. And for players that do want to party up against the minions of hell, we have new tools available to find a group, whether by activity or proximity in the game world. So obviously there are going to be moments where you want to find a bunch of other people. Personally, I like to run through a Diablo game solo first. I don't want to see anybody and then I want to go hang out with my friends. This is the perfect time to plug. We have a Discord linked in the description where we're going to be running a Diablo 4 clan, guild, crew, whatever they're calling it in-game. And I'm excited to have some of the best players I've known for years on the crew that are also friendly and helpful. They want to help you. Can you believe that? You just have to be a decent human being and show up. So link is in the description, and I can't wait to talk lore with you as we go take down Ashava, the disgusting world boss of pestilence. Moving on to items and progression. One of the things that was very useful about our 2-day playtest was that we could get better feedback on progression, as there was a sense of permanence. Gears and skill choices you make on day 1 have an impact on day 2, though some people chose to roll alts as we had multiple classes to test. A friend of mine used to say that Diablo is the game that you keep playing inside your head, and Diablo 4 is no different. In addition to the official playtime allotted to the team during the playtests, I could feel the game lingering in my mind, thinking about the items that could possibly drop for my build and talents I could finally unlock to get me those key skill interactions. You might have already read the developer blog by David Kim shortly after the last BlizzCon. In it, he describes newer fixes and itemization philosophies. We'll have a beefier update on items later in the year, but in the meantime, here are some items that dropped during the playtest to whet your appetite, which are on screen. Now, I'm going to do a really quick breakdown of the items, but basically there are 3 power types, which are a new mechanic in Diablo 4 in the form of extra affixes on items that you can see on the items on screen. It comes in 3 distinct types and provides 2 important functions. The types are Angelic Power, which increases the duration of all beneficial effects like self-buffs or healing. Demonic Power, which increases the duration of all negative effects like debuffs, crowd control, or damage over time. And Ancestral Power, which increases the chance of on-hit effects, aka proc chances, proc coefficient. Now, it's funny that they have designated 3 different distinct powers. There's angels, demons, and I assume the ancestors, which were the first of the Nephilim. Now that links back to lore, which I'm going to be covering in upcoming videos, but that's basically the crux of what they're talking about, though they will be doing further updates, and it has been a little controversial for gear junkies, I've noticed on the internet, so you guys let me know what you think of the gear in the comments below. Another facet that interestingly talks about game development mostly was Blockout. As part of their development, visuals are often kept in rough form so the game team can cheaply test ideas and iterate on them. If something isn't fun, it's much cheaper to change or discard a Blockout asset than a final one. Basically, it just looks like a really simplistic version of the game, and then you play it. If it doesn't look good, you scrap it. If it does look good, then you proceed, and that saves you a bunch of time. They also said when we share models or screenshots with you, they are often quite far along to adequately convey our vision for the game. We don't typically show Blockout assets as they don't really do justice to the engine or the artistry of the folks on the team. Basically, the internet will tear apart anything that doesn't look great. I really do enjoy seeing the behind the scenes. And they also said, but as part of showing the behind the scenes of how we make the game, we thought you'd appreciate seeing the transition of Blockout assets into more polished ones. Some of the assets shown in this blog may not be final, so please bear that in mind as you check out the screenshots which are on screen. And you can see how it goes from a grey character all the way to skinned, coloured, and the artists have rendered it into something more robust. Funnily enough, this looks like a similar demon in the storytelling panel that we see having an autopsy on its upper half, unfortunately for the demon. The final thoughts are very important as they break down future expectations of the release and the game. They said, the overall feedback from the team was that even at these early stages, Diablo 4 is very fun to play. The classes are especially going down a promising path that we're excited about. We're taking cues from what makes the Barbarian's Arsenal system or Druid's shapeshifting feel special and look for ways to apply similar innovations to all classes. There's more on this in future updates. Most importantly, however, they touched on, of course, we still have a lot of work ahead of us, and to be clear, we're not at an alpha or beta stage yet. We don't typically discuss our early milestones publicly during the course of development. I mean, it's Blizzard, but we think it's especially important to continue to share our progress during a year without a BlizzCon. Also, this was an important milestone for the team as we felt it corroborated that we have all the key ingredients for a great Diablo 4. Of course, we'll continue to seek feedback and iterate as we drive to completion. They go on to say that they are happy to receive feedback and hopefully they do so, and they can't wait to share more of Sanctuary with us. Obviously, don't hold your breath for something as robust until the next update. This is out of character almost for Blizzard to show us behind the scene, peel back the curtain, and they usually have this tight-lipped when it's done, especially the Blockout and some of the mechanics. I'm very excited from what I've seen. I do have some trepidation about some of the features as discussed in the video. Honestly, love to hear your feedback and thoughts. I learn the most when you guys tell me what you think or really piece things together. As I am a lore junkie, I learn everything about items, stats, builds, etc. from you, the community. Again, the guys on Discord have been hitting me up. Make sure to join us, linked in the description. Expect more lore videos peppered throughout the week, as these paltry few screen grabs have been surprisingly juicy. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Traveler.